we can finally start after that break. Let me present myself. I'm Rado Kapp. I'm professor at the Faculty of Political Science, and we have a very strong institutional relationship with the University of Wrocław. For me, it's my first time in Wrocław. Not in Poland. In Poland it's the fifth time. I went also near Wrocław in 2006, but for the first time I've been to Wrocław. After having many discussions on emails with Professor Sula, we agreed that for you it's necessary to have a lecture on decentralization, administration reform, regionalization, and so on in Romania. Because we are discussing a lot in recent years about the Polish experience, and we are trying to use the Polish experience as an example for further reforms, but Romania was not able to have structural reform in the area of regionalization, meaning that we still have the same administrative structure that was agreed previously in 1968. We do have some regions, but that were established in 1998. But these regions do not have legal personality, meaning that they can receive European funds, they can distribute European funds on different countries, but they do not have legal personality. In our constitution, there is no wording about the regions. There is a wording about the counties. We do have 41 counties, and you have to add the 5 sectors of the capital, Bucharest, meaning that we have 46 administrative units and 8 regions without a name. They are called with geographical name, like west, northeast, northwest, and so on. And there is a lot of discussion if it is necessary to give them legal personality or not. It means that we need to change the constitution in order to do so. Recently, we had two tries to change first the constitution, then the decentralization law. The current law is dated back from 2006. The constitution is dated back to 1991. First of all, about the revision of the constitutional process, it was a failure. Why? Because it was thought after the 2012 elections that the new majority formed by the Social Democrats and the Liberals had to follow more than 66%, almost 70%. It's able to finish the constitutional reform. Our constitution could be revised only by 2/3 of the parliament, and then approval by referendum. So in order to change the constitution, you need a large consensus among parties. It was hoped that the first time after 1991, it is possible to reach that majority of 2/3. But further political developments proved that this was not possible. The coalition fell in February this year. But before the official failure of the government coalition, there were discussions about regions, about administrative reform in the Commission for the Revision of the Constitution. But finally, the draft law received many comments from the Legislative Council, almost 30 pages of comments, negative comments. Then the Constitutional Court declared that 2/3 of the articles that were made by the Commission are not constitutional, meaning that they are against the limits of the revision of the Constitution. And third, the Venice Commission assessed the draft law and said that it's very unclear if the regime would be parliamentarian or semi-presidential, which means a complete failure of that process. And after the assessment of the Venice Commission, the Commission for the Revision of the Constitution didn't met. It was, how to say, in a way, a declaration, a statement that they have to begin again the process of the revision of the Constitution. And now it is not possible to come back to that process, not possible to come back to that commission. Why? Because there is no large governmental majority. There is a majority of 55%, let's say, who is supporting the government, which is not able to change the Constitution. But in a very strange way, the chapter dedicated to the administration reform was not as large as other chapters of the draft revision, draft law of the revision of the Constitution. It was said only that the regions are constitutionally subject, but the other article said, the following article said that this is according to the law, meaning that there was not consensus in the Commission on what the regions have to do in the future. So if you look at the work of the Commission for the Revision of the Constitution, you will not have an answer what would be the function of the regions. Government, knowing that it will receive a lot of negative comments from the institutions that have the task of seeing the draft law, started another process, the process of decentralization, saying that if we are not able to finalize regionalization reform, we are able to start a new kind of reform, to reform the law, the current normative framework on decentralization. The current law dates back from 2006, and in my presentation I will tell you all the steps on the decentralization reform in Romania and how this reform ended with the decision of the Constitutional Court, which struck the entire draft law on decentralization. It means that we have now only the 2006 law, which is a framework law, which is a law that established only some principles on decentralization. In 2006, it was not enough political will in order to have a concrete reform of decentralization. It was just before joining the European Union. As you know, the European Union is not focused on the reform of the administration. It used a functionalist approach, meaning that the reform of the administration is necessary only to have the result of having more European funds, more structural funds absorbed. So there is not a purpose per se to have the reform of the administration in any candidate country. It was also, it happened the same in Poland, but in Poland, politicians use that opportunity in order to have a major reform on regionalization. in Romania. There was not political will in 2006 in order to go further and to have a real regionalization reform. It was considered that it's enough to have a decentralization framework law in order to prove that we want to go further. In 1998, just before the official admission of Romania as a candidate country, it was considered that it's enough to have a law, a framework law on regions without giving them legal personality, in order to prove that we are ready to go further. Just having this framework, I can start now to speak about that particular process of decentralization reform from 2013 to 2014. It just ended in February this year with the decision of the Constitutional Court. Decentralization, in fact, is a constitutional matter. It is mentioned by the Romanian Constitution in Article 120, saying that the public administration from administrative units is based on decentralization, local autonomy, and deconcentration of public services. Of course, at that time in 1991, nobody gave a definition on what is decentralization, and only in 2001, so 10 years after the approval of the Constitution, in the law on the public administration, there is a mention about these principles, and other principles were added, like the principle that all the authorities of the local public administration are elected and not appointed, of course, like in the communist regime. It's strange enough to see that, for example, in 1990, it was a short period when the mayors were appointed by the government. So the first elections, local elections, real local elections, took place in 1992 after the approval of the Constitution. The principle of legality and the principle of consulting the citizens in giving solutions to the local problems. A framework law, the first framework law on decentralization, has been adopted in 2004. Why it was adopted? Because of the external pressure to do so. It was not adopted because it was considered necessary, but just because the Venice Commission, the consultative body of the Council of Europe, declared in 2003, when a successful revision of the Constitution took place, declared that it is necessary to have a framework law on decentralization. So once again, you see how important was the external pressure in order to have all this normative framework. Therefore, the government adopted in 2004 a decision on the strategy of accelerating reform in the public administration, and in that strategy it was mentioned about a law. So just to see how difficult it was to draft that law at that time. It's interesting to notice that even now, 10 years after the decentralization law, it has not been applied as it was thought in 2004. How much it was applied and how much it was not applied, this is another issue I will discuss further. According to that law, decentralization is defined as the process of transfer the authority and administrative responsibility and financial responsibility from the central level to the local level. And there are also some principles on which decentralization shall be based, and I quote, subsidiarity, equality of the citizens, exercising the competences of the local authorities at the administrative level, which is the most closest to the citizen, ensuring the balance between administrative decentralization and financial decentralization, and ensuring the financial decentralization based on transparent rules on financial resources that are allocated to the administrative units. It was very difficult to transpose that principle to ensure a balance between administrative decentralization and financial decentralization. There was a pressure from below, from the smallest administrative units, villages, communes, small cities, in order to be recognized as the communes to be recognized as cities, the cities to be recognized as municipalities, and so on. If you look at the official journal, after 2004, you will find in 1 month at least 3 or 4 government decisions recognizing the statute, upgrading, let's say, upgrading the statute of the administrative units. But the government upgraded the status of the administrative units without giving them financial means. The result was that some administrative units were bankrupt. And the result is that the government, under the pressure of the International Monetary Fund and of the European Commission, adopted 2 years ago a special law on the insolvency of the administrative units, which raised a lot of problems, because as the draft law says, you need always to ensure a balance between administrative decentralization and financial decentralization. The insolvency of the administrative unit solves only the financial problem, but not the political one, not the administrative one. For example, you can apply the rules of insolvency to an administrative unit. It is highly debatable, because who is responsible to decide on the revenues, on the normal life of that community? There are not only financial problems, there are also political problems. Therefore, even with that law, the problems were not solved, because one basic principle on the insolvency of the administrative units is that they are done by request. So in Romania, I know only a case in which the mayor requested the insolvency of his administrative unit. And finally, the insolvency was not, let's say, was not the final process. So the first problem is how to ensure this balance. The law does not give answers. It only says what is necessary to be done. And until now, we don't have clear answer on how to ensure the balance. Also, transparent rules on financial allocations to the administrative units. It is good to have this principle, but the principle has not been respected in practice. Usually, at the end of the year, the government make a rectification of the budget, no matter if it left or right oriented, and gives money to some administrative units from the special funds of the government. there is a special fund of the government for, let's say, unusual events like storms, fires, and so on. And anytime government is tempted to use that money in order to provide more financial allocation to the administrative units that are ruled by mayors or by residents of the county council close to the power. It happens all the time from 2004 until now. So the framework law did not succeed in solving this problem. It only put the principle in the law, but as I said, there are no strict rules on how the government could use that money, how we have to motivate that decision. So all these principles are necessary on one hand, but very general on the other. The same law declares that the local administration units have the right to experiment, the possibility to organize pilot centers for implementing decisions on decentralization. So if you want to transfer one competence from the national to local level, you are free to organize these pilot centers. You can make a research, so to say, in order to see if the transfer is possible or not. The principle is very good. In many countries, this right to experiment exists and is acknowledged, but it hasn't been used by the local authorities. Why it hasn't been used? Because there was no incentive to use that procedure. There was no motivation for the mayors, for example, or for the presidents of the county council to use the right to experiment. So there is no pilot center in the country right now. The right to experiment and the pilot centers were considered, were so much criticized in 2004, based on the same arguments that I have already done. The local administration is not ready to use these new prerogatives. And these critiques were proved correct. The same law said that the local units may decide to have cooperation bodies, may decide to join some competencies. Who is able to do so? Only the mayors, the local council, the county council, the president of the county council. There is no clear indication in the law. So if there is no indication, we can say that all local units may cooperate, may establish some form of cooperation. If you wish to draw a parallel, this is the same mechanism as it is in the European Union, enhanced cooperation. Some member states may cooperate with others in order to ensure the fulfilling of some objectives. According to that law, it was necessary to have a strategy of the government on accelerating the reform, and then to create the technical bodies for monitoring the whole process, and the last stage was to monitor the results based on some performance indicators approved by the government. needless to say, no steps from this indicated in the law has been taken from 2004 nowadays. Because the government saw that there is no result of the framework law, in 2006 a new law was adopted, changing entirely the formula. It is not clear why it was preferred to have an entire new law and not amending the 2004 law. There is, of course, there is a chapter on definition, a new definition of decentralization, a new definition of the subsidiarity principle, and for the first time in the history of the administration in Romania, the administrative capacity has been defined. Why? Because if you look at the documents of the European Union dedicated to the reform in Romania, in Poland, in all these countries, you will find this term, administrative capacity. But if you look carefully at these documents, you will see that there is no clear definition on what capacity, administrative capacity is. According to the Romanian law, there is a clear link between subsidiarity and administrative capacity. Administrative capacity is the total number of material, institutional, and human resources of administrative unit, and all the actions of that unit for exercising the competences. So you can see there is a very broad definition of the administrative capacity. I do not know if in Polish legislation, for example, there is a definition of the administrative capacity, but I have many doubts that having a definition is helpful for the whole process. Why I'm saying so? Because in my opinion, administrative capacity is a political concept and not a legal concept. If you look at the administrative law books, you will never find the term administrative capacity. But if you look at the political science approaches, you will find the term administrative capacity. So in my opinion, there is no need to have a definition in a law. It is very important to understand in practice how administrative capacity works. For the first time also, there is a definition on delegated competences, on exclusive competences, on shared competences between the central and the local level. As you may know, in the Treaty of the European Union, there is a definition on, there is a mention about competences, national competences, shared competences between national level and European level, and also competences that belongs only to the European Union. The same logic applies to the decentralization law in Romania, and it's logical. Why? Because the subsidiarity principle has been mentioned. Therefore, it is necessary to transpose how the subsidiarity mechanism works. Subsidiarity is very much linked with sharing the competences. You cannot, subsidiarity is necessary to decide which level is competent when a competence is shared. So I think that the logic of the current Romanian law, or current Romanian framework law, it's very clear, and it is according to the, let's say, European approach. I'm not saying European Union approach, I'm saying European approach, because in many countries where you have this distribution of powers, you have also a mention about the subsidiarity principle. There is also a discussion in this 2006 law about the financial autonomy and the administrative autonomy. This time, the balance is more clearly expressed. Why? Because it is said that any transfer of competences from the state, from the central level to the local authorities is together with ensuring the resources. So you cannot do a transfer without giving the resources. The transfer of competences is the equivalent of the transfer of financial resources. The transfer of the transfer of competences, it's made in the same time with the transfer of resources. In other words, you cannot make a transfer, you cannot give a prerogative to a legislative unit without giving to that unit the financial use. But who decides on the financial resources, if they are necessary or not? Who decides if the financial resources given to that local authority are also necessary to that authority? The answer is based, the official answer of the law is based on administrative capacity. So having the administrative capacity means that you can absorb the funds from the transfer from the central level, from the state. There is also a new mechanism in the law establishing the cost standards and establishing also quality standards. Who is responsible for having these standards is the government. The standards have to be the same for all the authorities, but only 3 years after that law, only in 2009, a government decision emerged on elaborating minimal standards. Even now, there is a whole discussion about the standards. Having cost and quality standards for local units, it's also a European logic. I'm very sure that, for example, in Polish law, you have the same approach to establish cost and quality standards, but there is a very much discussion on how the standards have to be written. I remember in 2010, or even at the end of 2009 and beginning of 2010, the government tried to establish some standards valid for all administrative units. What is in practice to establish these standards? It could be, the government could say, because you have these competences and because you have this financial means, you need only 20 people to work in the municipality. If you need more people, you need your own funds in order to give them salaries, for example. But this reform of the government has been challenged by some mayors of major towns, of towns which were performant, let's say, in absorbing EU funds, and they challenged the whole strategy of the government to establish unitary standards across the country. And finally, the government renounced at the time to establish cost and quality standards, which I think is a mistake. Of course, there is a pressure from below to renounce that reform, but it's necessary to have a clear image, not the control, but the clear image on the whole process from the central level. Establishing cost and quality standards doesn't mean that the government have the power to intervene in local businesses, local issues. It means only that the government have a clear image on what is necessary from the financial perspective, what is necessary at the local level. But it's very important to notice that there is also a European framework on decentralization. There is a European Charter on local autonomy. Romania has ratified, all member states of the Council of Europe have ratified this European Charter. And there are some principles which have to be in any national law on decentralization. From my perspective, you will find other authors who are saying it's not necessary to have these principles of the European Charter in any national law. Why? Just because the European Charter is dedicated to the local autonomy and not to decentralization as a process, not to regionalization. But I think, in my opinion, I have a strong opinion in favor of implementing the whole bundle of principles in a local. There is a principle in that European Charter which is not part of the regionalization, and I don't know why, because it's very important. Namely the proportionality between financial resources and competences. You cannot have subsidiarity principle without proportionality. Why? Because in the process of transferring competences from the national to the local level, you need to ensure the full application of the proportionality. And also, there is an important principle in the European Charter that is not part of the Romanian legislation. For example, the fact that the government gives subsidies to the local units doesn't mean that these local units cannot have their own policies. This principle is not part of the Romanian law, but I think it's very important because finally, who is entitled to local autonomy is the administrative unit and not the government. The right to local autonomy belongs to the administrative units. And also, the right of association between local units. As you can see in the current law, there is a very unclear indication on how these units may associate. I was part of a commission appointed by the President of Romania for the reform of the constitutional and political regime in Romania in 2008. We published a report in 2009, and one phrase which I have written in that report, it is also valid right now. I said, it's not possible to go further in this reform. It's not possible to create regions before the end of the association process. means we have to give incentives for the units to associate themselves and to create the regions from below. You cannot create regions by a decision of the government. You need a certain time, a certain period for an association or a real association of the local units to see who wants, which country wants to associate with another country. For example, I don't know the situation in Poland, but in Romania, if you are crossing a road from one country to another country, you will see that after the border of the country, the road is not so good as it was in the first country. It means that the counties do not cooperate enough, even for basic needs like ensuring transportation from one capital of the country to another capital of the country. There is and therefore it is necessary to enhance somehow the cooperation between units before imposing a model on regionalization. This is the main problem in my view, and the assessment we made in 2009 is valid also today. Well, in 2013, the Parliament adopted the law on establishing some measures of decentralization, and this law, as I said, has been declared non-constitutional by the decision 1 of 2014 of the Constitutional Court. It's very interesting to notice that the law from 2014 didn't make any reference to the framework law and didn't make any reference to the European Charter on Local Autonomy, which are the basic instruments if you want to realize a reform of public administration in Romania. I don't want to go into details, but the law describes in 49 pages. It means that it's a huge law. The decentralization framework law have 6 pages, for example, just to compare. So in 49 pages, there is a description on how the competences are transferred from the central to local level. But there is a problem in doing a decentralization reform. You have a special legislation on goods which are considered to be public property. How to transfer these goods belong to public property? There is a special procedure. The law on decentralization said that in some areas, the law on goods which are public property is not respected. Because otherwise, you cannot do this transfer of competences. Once again, you have a very restrictive law of the transfer of property. The transfer of property of public goods is regulated also by the Constitution. And this was the main reason why the law has been declared unconstitutional. The Constitutional Court said that law on decentralization does not fully respect a principle of a law of the public property. But the rules on public property have a constitutional nature. They are not only legal provisions, but this legal provision does have a constitutional importance. Therefore, the law is not constitutional. The Constitutional Court declared that some articles of the Constitution are infringed by the current law. For example, the unitary type of the state, the articles related to public property, the articles related to local administration, and so on. And just to give an example, which were the competences that were given to local authorities in agriculture and rural development, culture, tourism, education, environment, health, transportation, and so on. And maybe there is a full list of competences, or some competences which were given to the local authorities. Once again, the Constitutional Court used the same line of reasoning that I already expressed here, namely that decentralization shall have a double nature, if you wish. If you are doing decentralization, you have to indicate the financial means for decentralization. And the law does not indicate the financial means of decentralization. And this is not only a legal principle, but also a constitutional principle. It is very important to notice that the Constitutional Court argues that it's not competent only to see the non-constitutionality of the laws, but also the contradictions between the laws themselves. You may ask, it is not the prerogative of the High Court, of the Supreme Court, why the Constitutional Court is interfering in the laws? The court invoked that the previous jurisprudence, saying that acting like this, it's acting in the help of the principle of the rule of law. It was said in the jurisprudence of the Constitutional Court that any normative act has to fulfill some requirements. It has to be sufficiently clear and precise. Based on that argument, the law was considered unconstitutional. It was considered that the law is not sufficiently clear and precise. And if I can draw a parallel, you know that in the European Union system, the directives have to be clear and precise. Otherwise, they can be challenged in the front of the European Court of Justice. So, the clear and precise standard is not the Romanian Constitutional Court standard. In fact, it is a standard that was established by the European Court of Human Rights first, then by the European Court of Justice, and then by national jurisdictions. So the Constitutional Court concluded that the current law does not respect the constitutional requirement regarding the quality of the law. And it was said because we can have the constitutional control, we can make also a legality control. So, as a result, we still have in place only the framework law from 2006. It doesn't mean that the decentralization was not a process after the fall of communism. On the contrary, in my opinion, there is so much power on the local level. The presidents of the county councils are elected since 2008. The presence of the county councils sometimes are called by the media as local barons. Why? Because they have a huge power to decide how that county is ruled. So, on the one hand, you have, let's say, a failure to have a clear process of decentralization by laws. But on the other hand, you have, I can call it, uncontrolled practical decentralization that is in place right now. And how to control this process is not easy. I will like to discuss also a little bit about the regionalization efforts. As I said, we have now 8 regions. Don't have. I have here a picture on map of Romania. You can see the 41 regions in Bucharest here. You can see that the level of administrative units is identical. There are no huge differences between administrative units. And you can see that the 8 regions are composed by 4 or 5 counties. The problem is that the borders between the counties were established in 1968 during Ceausescu regime, taking into account the economic reality of that time. And now, for example, we have some centers of these counties which are not in reality the political centers of their countries. Why? Because, of course, it was a shift, a complete shift in industry, a relocalization of the industry, of the services, and so on. So you have a completely different economic map, which do not fit with the political map. I have here some models on regionalization, different proposals on what will change in the current system. There are at least 7 proposals right now. One is to have 18 regions, one is to have 8 regions, 15, 13. The number is very different. Each of them it's made by with very strong arguments. And how to make a regionalization process, successful regionalization process, is not, as you may think, is not an entirely political decision. It is also a technical decision. When you create a region, for example, you can take into account some important factors, like how distant is the capital of that region from major towns, from major administrative units. How easy is for the citizens to join, to go to the administration unit, to financial offices, and so on. Second factor, how can you succeed to make a balance between economy and the political factors? politicians want sometimes to keep the capital of a region, but in economic terms it proves that that capital is not a viable unit. It's not does not have enough how to say firms in order to ensure the stability and of that capital. Of course, it is not a rational decision. It could be a rational decision on how to make the regionalization, but in fact it's not a rational decision. But the main challenge is that the whole process is more rational than political. You need to balance the two, and in the end, it is very important for the experts to impose their arguments on politicians. How to do so? I think the only way is with public debate. Without public debate in any country on the borders of the regions and on the function of the regions and on the competences of the regions, you cannot have a successful regionalization approach. So in my view, regionalization have to start from the citizens, from below, and then the government have to establish only the framework for discussion, for the public debate to take place. In the decentralization case, there was no public debate on the content of the law. It was considered only a political decision, without knowing the opinion of the citizens. In the formation of the regions in 1998, also there was no public debate. The law came out of the sudden without any real public debate. Even if, according to the Romanian legislation, it is necessary to have a public debate on any law. We need to debate the law in 30 days. But these laws were not debated with the citizens. And I have to say, it was not all that the citizens were not stimulated at the level of the current countries to take part in that process. They even didn't know that the law is written. Even myself, I didn't know that the law is already written and it has to be discussed in the parliament. The whole process was not transparent enough. Therefore, without a public debate, the law didn't have, did not fulfill the legitimacy criterion to be accepted, even if would be accepted by the Constitutional Court. So, this is the full story, let's say, of the current decentralization reform, of the current issues in public administration in Romania. Once again, even if there are, some failures from the legal perspective, the competences were delegated, and you have now a process that is not enough controlled, and there is a pressure to make the whole process more transparent. It is a pressure also from the justice, because if you see the corruption cases in Romania, 90% of the high official corruption cases are linked to the local level and not to the central level. You have more mayors or presidents of the county council which are indicted by the prosecutors or judged than politicians, member of the parliament, for example. And there is a clear indicator that the whole process has to be better controlled in order to see a transparent allocation of financial resources. So, this is just for having a discussion. I can discuss the whole day about these issues, but I think the main thing is that you can participate in the discussion. It is a summer school, so you're not obliged to take notice. You are only here because you are willing to join this group, and I'm here for your questions, and if I can initiate the debate, I will be more than that. Thank you. Please. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I would say there are a lot of similarities with the Croatian case also in this policy issue. But I'm not sure if I understand it correctly about the regionalization process. So at the moment you have implemented the 8 regions. So what is the next goal? Why do you want to go further, or what is the...
Yes, I cannot give you an answer because there is no clear indication on the political will to go further. Officially, all the parties want to have this regionalization. So, before and during the work of the Commission for the Revision of the Constitution, all the political parties expressed their will to go further to the regionalization reform. But as I said, the final result was that there is only a mention on the role of the regions without saying anything on how region bodies would be elected. I think, I don't have too many details, but I think that the fact that the text does not mention the competences and how they are appointed or nominated and so on, it is a clear indicator that there was no consensus between political parties inside the Commission on how these regions, region heads have to be elected. Because it was thought, if the current presidents of the county councils have so much power, just imagine how much power would have a head of a region which will be elected. So all the parties said there is a danger in this issue. The whole discussion was, how to say, based on the lack of trust in political parties. They didn't thought it is better to have regions, but they thought the regions would be a good thing if I can ensure the election of the head of the regions. Therefore, they said it is very complicated to decide on this issue, so let's postpone the decision. And before they didn't agree on this very important matter, how it is elected, how the, let's say, the Council of the Region is elected, yes, by majority vote, by proportional representation and so on, in one round, in two rounds. So they didn't agree on the electoral system, let's say. They agree in principle that these people have to be elected. But they didn't agree on the formula of election. I've just read on the way to Wrocław many articles connected with the electoral reform in Italy. And it is the same as in Romania. I think it's the same in any country. All the parties could agree on any reform they wish, but it's very hard to have a consensus on the electoral system between political parties. And why so? Because political parties have a very different interpretation on the outcomes of an electoral system. Therefore, they cannot agree very easily on this issue. And it was also the Romanian case. If you follow the discussion in the Commission, this was the very important point where they cannot come to a consensus. In my opinion, and also another debate was, if we introduce the regions, what will be the competences of the counties? Are we ready to renounce to the counties? Or are we ready to establish a system like regions and then local communities without counties? It's difficult to have an answer on that question. In my opinion, you can have, as once again I've already stated, you can have a system based on regions, you can renounce to the counties, but first you need to see how the counties cooperate with each other, and then to establish regions, and then how to see it is natural to renounce to the counties. It's not a decision of the legislature to renounce to it. It would be the decision of the local authorities. We don't need the counties. As you can see, there are a lot of discussion on this. In Poland, for example, I know that the parliament took the decision very suddenly, just to create the regions and to keep the counties. I don't know any European state, I don't know, but maybe I do not have enough information, but believe me that I studied this area. I do not know any European country which renounced all of a sudden to a certain level of decision in administration for introducing the regions. I don't know. I know the case of Spain, for example, where the autonomous communities were created without renouncing to the previous system. I know the system of Poland. I know the system of Italy, where the regions were created without renouncing to the system. So I cannot give you an example on giving up very easily to the current system in place. I think the regeneration reform is, how to say, you need time in order to, basically there are two approaches. The first approach, you are doing all of a sudden by law, which was not discussed, or you are going through the Italian experience, let's say. Decades of discussions, and finally you have de facto regions which are transformed in de jure regions. Yes. But in Romania case, how to say, the regions, the current regions, because they do not have legal personality, they are made on the borders of the current counties, which is an option that I criticize. because you need to have a discussion on changing the borders between the countries. And then to create the regions. Just to have a new map and say these 4 or 5 counties will compose a new region, I don't think it's a workable reform. I think it's a reform that will fail if it is applied. Yes. So, nobody is interested by these issues and public policies regarding administration, local administration, regions. So, I understand the message. You are hungry. Yes or no? Yes. Okay, so we can continue our discussion with lunch or afterwards. So